Уважаемые коллеги,
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, together with the President of Iran, Mr. Rouhani, and President of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan, we have concluded very substantial talks on Syria that were held in a constructive and businesslike manner. There has been a detailed discussion of main aspects of the Syrian settlement. We have agreed to continue to undertake most active efforts aimed at accomplishing main tasks to restore peace and stability in Syria, to preserve its sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity. We were pleased to state that significant progress has been achieved in our joint fight against terrorism. We have confirmed our readiness to build up our cooperation aimed at the ultimate destruction of ISIL, Jabhat al-Nusra, and other extremist groups. It is our common conviction that success on the battleground that brings about the liberation of all of the territory of Syria from militants usher in a qualitative new stage in the Syrian settlement. I'm referring to the real prospect for the lasting, comprehensive normalization in Syria and political development of the country at a post-conflict stage. That is the main goal of our joint statement agreed upon based on the outcomes of today's talks. The document outlines priority areas for further cooperation between Russia, Iran, and Turkey playing a key role on the Syrian issue. The specific tasks for the future have been put forth. We stand united in the fact that we need to promote the cooperation of the three countries within the framework of the Astana format that have demonstrated its efficiency and contributed to the reduction of level of violence in Syria and set the conditions for the return of refugees and internally displaced persons. As guarantors, Russia, Iran, and Turkey continue to cooperate closely on the strengthening of the cessation of hostilities regime, the sustainable functioning of de-escalation areas, and increasing trust between the parties to the conflict. In this regard, we have outlined priority steps aimed at stepping up the inclusive intra-Syrian dialogue based on UN Security Council Resolution 2254. Let me note with satisfaction that presidents of Iran and Turkey supported Russia's initiative to convene the All-Syrian Forum, the Congress of National Dialogue of Syria, in Russia. We agreed to hold this important event at an adequate level to ensure the broadest possible representation of the Syrian society in this event. We instructed the foreign ministries of the three countries, representatives of special services and defense ministries, to work out the details as of the composition and the date of the Congress that is going to take place in Sochi. The main idea is to bring to the negotiations table the delegates of various political parties, internal and external opposition, ethnic and confessional groups. The Congress will address the key issues related to the national agenda of Syria and the development of parameters of the future statehood of the state, the adoption of new constitution and holding of elections based on these constitutions under the surveillance of the United Nations. As a result, there is going to be an impetus to step up the Syrian settlement process within the framework of the Geneva format. Let me stress that it is up to the Syrians to define the future of Syria, both up to those who support the existing authorities and the opposition. We informed our colleagues about the meeting that took place here in Sochi with President of Syria, Bashar Assad. We stressed that the Syrian leadership expressed its commitment to the principles of peaceful settlement of the political crisis, their readiness to carry out a constitutional reform and free elections under the control of the United Nations. During today's talks, we also addressed the issues related to the social and economic recovery of Syria. There is a huge way ahead. We need to help Syria the Syrians restore infrastructure, industry, agriculture, and trade, to reopen social infrastructure facilities, hospitals, schools, and kindergartens. It is of utmost importance, as we stressed on many occasions, to ensure the multifold increase of humanitarian assistance to the population, to demine the territory of Syria, to preserve historic and cultural heritage. During today's meeting, we agreed to do everything at stake to encourage other countries, regional and international organizations to get involved into these efforts. As I conclude, I would like to extend gratitude to our partners from Iran and Turkey, to my colleagues, President Rouhani and President Erdogan, for substantial, fruitful, and productive talks. I would like to hope that the agreements achieved will speed up the peaceful settlement process in Syria and reduce risks of new conflicts, exacerbation of interethnic and interreligious confrontation, and as a result, will have the most positive impact on the situation in the Middle East. I thank you for your attention.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
In the name of God, the gracious and the merciful. First and foremost, I would be remiss not to thank President Putin for his important initiative of convening a trilateral summit with a view to discussing peace and stability in Syria. As well as to creating safe conditions for the Syrian refugees' return to their homeland. The moment which has been selected to hold this meeting is very important, and this importance consists in the following. Our decisions can help stabilize the situation in Syria. Moreover, they can be helpful in the context of the Astana process. ISIL bastions in Syria and Iraq have been destroyed. And a broad consensus has been forged in the region to fight terrorism. Terrorism can serve as an instrument to no country. Under no circumstances should we forget that terrorism is always a threat to countries. As we can see, those who used to help ISIL have now come under threat from ISIL. ISIL is killing innocent citizens of these countries that used in the past to support it. It is amid this background that the current summit has been convened. It has turned out to be very helpful. We've had an exchange of opinions. We have talked in particular about convening a national dialogue congress for Syria that would involve the representatives of all layers of Syrian society, both those who support the Syrian government and those who find themselves in opposition to the current regime. This Congress is a chance for them to gather together and to talk about Syria's future. It is also important to set in place conditions for developing a new constitution for this country, so that based on this new constitution, Syria could hold new elections. This, in turn, would be a message of peace and stability to the whole region. Our three countries are calling upon all countries of the world. Calling all of them to help rebuild peace in Syria and to create conditions for the Syrian refugees to be able to get back to their homeland. It is also important to ensure conditions for the economic recovery of the Syrian state. We have all talked about our positions. All three countries have spoken in favor of convening this Congress of National Dialogue here in Sochi. We've also agreed to have meetings of foreign ministers of our three countries as well as meetings of our special services in order to create conditions for holding this National Dialogue Congress. As we hope, this Congress is going to be another step towards rebuilding peace and stability in Syria, as well as to holding free elections in Syria under the new constitution to be adopted. I would like to reiterate that I'm grateful to Mr. Putin for his invitation. I would also like to thank President Erdogan for taking part in the current meeting. We're hopeful that this process with a view to finding peace in Syria is going to be continued. Thank you.
Değerli dostlarım,
Dear
heyetlerimizin
friends, dear members of our delegations, dear representatives of the mass media, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome all of you wholeheartedly. As I begin, let me express gratitude to my friend, President Putin, representing all our Russian friends. Our close dialogue with Russia goes on both bilaterally and internationally. Thanks God, we are generating the benefits of this cooperation in all the areas. Let me agree with the President, as he said, that we need to build up on the momentum achieved. As we talked together with Mr. Rouhani, we agreed that we need to extend our ties in all the areas. Dear friends, during our talks both with Mr. Putin and Mr. Rouhani, we have had detailed discussions of all the items on our agenda. We have considered joint steps to be taken in order to bring about peace in Syria. We were pleased to state that the key contribution to the elevation of tension has been made by de-escalation areas. We have discussed further steps that could contribute to the Geneva process aimed at lasting Syrian settlement based on the progress reached within the framework of the Astana format. We have decided that we need to provide support to large-scale, free and fair democratic process in Syria based on principles of UN Security Council Resolution 2254. We believe that we need to coordinate our approaches and efforts aimed at the preparation of the National Dialogue Congress that was proposed by Russian Federation. Our today's statement is one of the few steps reflecting the foundations of our cooperation, and this cooperation should continue. The coordination of our efforts is of high importance in the settlement process. As guarantors, our mutual understanding and mutual respect are of critical importance in these processes. Let me stress that the destruction of terrorist elements that threaten territorial integrity of Syria and security of our countries will be a priority for our countries. One shouldn't expect us to be under the same roof and on the same platform together with terrorist organizations that threaten our national security. If we are committed to territorial integrity and political unity of Syria, then we cannot accept as an actor, as a stakeholder of such events, such a bloody element that threatens the security of all the countries. During today's talks, we have stressed the need to undertake measures aimed at building confidence. The measures to be taken to ensure free and uninterrupted humanitarian access to the population that has been affected by this crisis for so many years. I believe that the joint statement will form the foundation for our future gradual concerted efforts in this field. I believe that such meetings will be highly fruitful and will have a positive impact on the region. I would like to call upon all the members of the international community to support our efforts. Thank you.